Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Candidates Tournament. This is the most important tournament of 2026, and this is the 9th round out of 14. So if you have been watching every single recap thus far, the introduction might be getting a little bit boring. So rather than brief you on all of the information about the tournament, I'm just going to assume you followed the recaps. And if you haven't, check out one of the first 8. We are now in the second half. We're past the start of the second half, and Javakhir Sindarov is running away. He's got a 2-point lead with only 6 rounds to go. He has to make a lot of draws or lose games for anybody else to catch him, which is why in the thumbnail I'm begging somebody to do something. Today was a more surprising round than I thought. So without further ado, let's get right into it. And we will start with the game between the legend of the tournament, and that is not Sindarov. I am, of course, talking about Matthias Bluebaum. Touted by the fans before the tournament as the number 1, the most handsome player in the field. Number 2, the man who's going to upset everybody with the great Bluebaum sweep. Now, going into this game, I thought we would have a draw in an hour because Bluebaum has not played ambitiously with white. But then I was like, maybe it's the second half of the tournament and he's going to try to play for a win with white now. On that note, we have the opening that he plays literally all the time, and we have this Queen's Gambit declined with Bishop to F4. And this has been played several times. In fact, in the very first round of the tournament, Sindarov was with white and Yesipenko was with black, and this is the position that they had on the board. It was takes, bishop f4. But here, Matthias leaves the option for black to take this pawn. However, generally, if black was going to take that pawn, he could have taken it on the first move. He could have taken it here, which is also what Fabiano did against Sindarov. You can also take it here. So why on earth would you take it here? Because Sindarov is playing his preparation. The idea of this move is simply to surprise your opponent. It is not a very logical move after committing to playing the bishop there, because in many positions where you take, the bishop actually goes to b4. So why would you do the two together? Well, here's the truth. Nowadays, you can basically do anything. You can play whatever opening you want, whatever move order you want, and Bluebaum here thinks for a little bit, and he takes the entire center. Now, the game Giri Prague from round 8, if you remember, featured b5, but without the movement of the bishops. So obviously the movement of these two bishops benefits white, right? Like black can't just play b5 here. No, it turns out he can. He can just do whatever he wants. So Sindarov plays b5 anyway. And here's the best part. After knight takes b5, he doesn't take on e4. He plays bishop b4 check. How is this possible? How can you play bishop e7 and then bishop b4 check? And if white brings the knight back now, which is clearly the most obvious move, black will then probably take on e4 after trading this. Sindarov is playing for a win with black. He is playing a risky, ambitious, offbeat opening to disturb the equilibrium. Why did I pronounce it like that? Equilibrium, stupid. Equilibrium of Matthias Bluebaum. Bluebaum likes a nice little calm game. He's trying to throw all that off. Now, here, Matthias thinks for 9 minutes and plays bishop back to d2. So both guys making multiple moves with their bishop, even though children are watching this game, obviously violating all sorts of principles. Black takes, and now Bluebaum does not take with the queen or the king, obviously. He takes with a knight, which is not very obvious, but he just defends the pawn in the middle of the board. Totally unprincipled here, obviously. Now here, Javakhir, here's the interesting thing about this. Javakhir in this position, if I look at the computer, black recommends pawn to a6, knight to c6. He castled after thinking for 2 minutes, and the computer did not like that move. So either he mixed something up here, or his computer at home has deeper analysis, because this gave Matthias the option to push this pawn to e5. Then this knight would have to go somewhere, and assuming you want to maintain vision on d4, because you want to play a6 and take my pawn, you would go here. That's a horrible looking move. So then you would probably go here, and then white can go here and just be a pawn up. Now, maybe he analyzed this much, much, much deeper. I don't know what Matthias didn't like about this, but instead of doing that, he took on c4 immediately and allowed Javakhir to take back on d4. But then the way that Matthias played this was incredible. Obviously here, white can do something super boring like castle on the same side. And I mean, we're used to Matthias being so solid. And then at this point, I like went to do something. I came back and Matthias had played queen e2 and long castle. I was like, who is this guy? The great Bluebaum sweep? Like, he just castled on opposite sides. He doesn't know anything about the position. I mean, maybe he does. I have no idea. It's a very provocative position. I mean, White's idea now is to play f3, g4, h4, and to go take the king. I mean, literally just bring him out of the castle. And Sindarov's idea is to develop his knight, put the rooks on A and B, or maybe, you know, this pawn really is in the way, and launch a massive counterattack. So, like, amazing stuff. The problem is this is not how Bluebaum typically plays, and this is going to become extremely obvious in about 3 moves. So Black plays queen b6, very flexible move, leaving the position. Bluebaum plays f4, okay? Not the most accurate, actually. Apparently, you needed to play bishop to d3, and then e5 and knight c4. This was the correct plan of attack. He plays f4. Bluebaum, Dravakir develops his knight, and now g4. I mean, this is like bullet chess. I mean, really, f4, g4, like, this is how you play when you have a minute on the clock. You have no time to think. Dravakir develops the knight now to c5 to clear the path potentially for that knight, also to go back to e8, also to put pressure on the middle. g5, and this whole sequence of moves is just bad for white. So Bluebaum castles into an opposite side position and does all this, and then he plays bishop back to b3, which is incorrect, and Sindarov just absolutely takes over the game. a5 is apparently not the most accurate, but whatever, a5, and then trades the knight, brings this rook to b8, and the next few moves are going to be bishop to c6, a4, with a massive attack against the king. Sindarov is winning again with the black pieces, and he's up 30 minutes on the clock. I mean, this is completely absurd. This is going to become the greatest tournament performance ever. I know that some of you are truthers of Bobby Fischer, and yes, it was extremely impressive that Fischer and the candidates, when he was playing, literally went like 11-0. But I'm pretty sure that was against like 3 people. I think he swept multiple matches. He had some winning streak in the candidates where he just beat the same person every time. And there is something to be said for, like, he was so much better than everybody that you're kind of like, yeah. But I get it. We progress 50, 60 years in the future. We constantly try to bury the past. Still, for a candidate's performance at this age, this is just unbelievable. And it only gets worse for Bluebaum, who completely, I mean, like, look at Black. How did Sindarov coordinate such a beautiful attack? It's just incredible. Knight takes a4, knight takes, pawn takes, and Sindarov is winning on the board. But he's winning on the board in a very obscure way. He needs to move his queen backwards. Because after queen to b7, you just threaten to take this pawn, and I do mean take that pawn, even though it's protected. Why? Because after takes, you allow queen b1 check. And there's other tactics here, but the most vicious tactic by far is c5. And the queen cannot defend the bishop, and cannot defend checkmate at the same time. So Sindarov in this position can play queen to b7, and the white position is completely falling apart. Sindarov, with 55 minutes on the clock, just goes into a drawn position. And the game ends in a draw. Like, it didn't even occur to him he could be better here, let alone winning. He didn't have to go queen b7. He could have played queen a5. And then he could have went for rook b4. Like, he could have hunted Bluebaum. And he was up a lot on time. And like, I looked away. 11 seconds he played this move. This is the only Achilles heel that Sindarov has, is he might make a big decision in a game too quickly. Unfortunately for everybody else, the only decisions that come down to is like him making a draw instead of a win. That was a pretty big half a point that he gave away, but he's still completely winning the tournament. So a weird game, because actually Sindarov was close to having 7.5 out of 9. 7.5. How is that feasible, bro? This man is almost 2780. He's about to overtake Fabiano Caruana and Hikaru, who are battling in the 2790 position. Speaking of those boys, this game took 6 hours and nothing freaking happened in this game. Hikaru played the English. It was a Queen's Gambit declined, a little bit different. The position that they got from the opening was this. It was a heavy piece endgame of queens and rooks. I'ma just... Okay, it was a draw. Now, what actually did happen was Hikaru was putting a little bit of pressure on these pawns. Yesipenko traded off one of the pawns. He went into an endgame that looked like this. The reason this is a draw is because white is unable to progress the b-pawn. It's just impossible. White has to defend it horizontally and cannot bring the king over there because black will create counterplay. And this is a draw because anytime you try to make progress, I give you checks, and I'm always threatening to win this pawn. The only thing with black you shouldn't do is trade these 2 pawns, because then you will find a way to lose, because then I will try to promote. And I can't do that right now because you will always check me, and if I go like behind, then you will win this pawn. It was a draw, but it took 6 hours. So really, really tragic, because we're running out of time. I mean, you know, the Hikaru comeback, like, we're literally losing people who can never win this tournament, even though we're only in round 9, which is crazy. But this was a big game. Fabiano versus Giri. They are the only other people who can catch Sindarov if he keeps giving away half a point like that. It was E45, so Giri did not play a Sicilian. The reason Giri did not play a Sicilian here is because he's played the knight already twice or 3 times. He's gone for Sicilian multiple times in the tournament, and he trusts that Fabiano Caruana probably spent dozens of hours looking, so he goes E5. And you kind of get this interesting dynamic here where both guys know they have to win. And he kind of anticipates Fabiano's going to play for a win with white. And Fabi does. He plays an Italian, but he plays D3. He doesn't play the C3, D4 lines. Then he plays a bit more obscure knight BD2. Both guys get a very original type of game. It actually kind of resembles... it resembles some main lines. It might have even transposed here to a main line. Rook E1, D4. White advances in the middle. And Giri transfers the knights to the right side of the board to... to the king side, and here they will try to go to F4 or H5 and then F4 or H5 and then that knight will come to F4. Fabi repositioning his pieces, both guys still kind of in their preparation more or less. You're giving up the bishop on D3 because the knight is already very strong, and A4. So Anish is using that advanced A-pawn. He controlled the white expansion. That's one of the plans that white sometimes likes to implement. But here black is controlling the queenside play. This is a very rich position that at a master level can be dissected for hours. But in the, interest of giving you a recap that's exciting and engaging, I'm going to try to simplify some of the concepts. Fabi chose to advance in the middle after 21 minutes of thought. He could have kept the tension. One of the interesting moves here was actually just B3, offering a trade. And if the bishop were to take, like this, it would simply be trapped. This would be reminiscent of how Fischer lost his Bishop to Spassky in the World Championship match. Obviously, that wouldn't happen, but you would have this structure, and then you would continue to try to move it forward. The problem is, I think Fabi saw that maybe there are trades in the future, and so he wanted to maybe lock the position, kind of lock arms, lock horns with his opponent. And Giri set up a very nice position, very spiky position, but with a lot of future pawn breaks, and the person that controls the potential pawn play in the position could control the game. So bishop takes. F takes, a little bit of an ugly move, but controlling the knight from infiltrating on F4. And now Giri begins expanding with the pawns. He has the B pawn, the C pawn, etc. Still a very closed game, but I think both guys deep down know, like, they can't afford a lot more draws. So we have pawn takes on B3. We have pawn takes on B3 and queen B8. The tension is being kept. Can white advance here in any way? He goes for C4. Giri keeps the tension. Queen B6. Targets this pawn. The rook defends the rook. There really is nothing here for Fabi. Fabi can maybe take on B5 to open up the C file, but the truth is, like, it's like a high-level Italian-Spanish. It's probably heading for a draw, so we have knight F5. Giri just plays a waiting move. He's kind of waiting to see what Fabi's going to do. At this point, the engine actually just says go back. But Fabi goes here, so he keeps trying to push for something. Now Anish is like, wait a minute, I'm going to lock the door over here. I'm going to shut down the queen side real quick. And after king H2, he plants the rook on A3. And suddenly, everything that white has been doing over here is like, wait a minute. It's only black who is playing for anything here. That pawn is anchoring the rook. And if you take it, I now get a pawn 2 squares from queening, which you have to go defend. And I'm going to go rook A8. I'm going to go queen A6. I'm going to infiltrate. And if you step off the file, then I'm going to infiltrate like this. Things are starting to look a little dangerous for Fabiano because Anish has arrived. He's arrived on A2. That's a very annoying rook. So you back up. And now he chomps down the knight and leaves only 2 minor pieces. A battle of bishop versus knight. Of course, white has a very good position. This bishop can't really activate, but this knight can't activate either. Now, there comes the A-file infiltration. Fabi plays rook E2. Fabi is quickly realizing here he doesn't have a plan. He is defending this position because he kind of waited a little too long, and then Anish played B4, rook A3, and suddenly you're gasping for oxygen. Anish is waiting. Look, they repeat moves. Fabi doesn't repeat moves. After rook E2, queen A7, rook C1, queen B6, like, I don't think that rook B1 would have been a draw. I think maybe Anish would have played, but you really don't know. Fabi doesn't go for the draw, though. Now Anish plays H6, still waiting. Fabi goes knight E1. Anish goes king H7. I mean, black is not doing anything. He's making Simple improving moves. Rook a2 from Fabi. That is a massive decision. Again, Fabi can play knight f3, knight e1, knight d. Like, I don't think Anish was going to necessarily go crazy here. But after this trade and this move, suddenly Anish is like, wait a minute. I'm in prime position. Like, Fabi is voluntarily tying his shoes together at the top of a staircase. I don't know why he would do that. I would think you have better activities to do in Cyprus. But now he goes queen d3. The bishop points at the pawn. Like, the knight needs 3 moves to go back and defend that pawn. And Fabi's like, wait a minute, what have I done to my position? Why is my knight in the corner, bro? I mean, this is like when you dream about chess. You're like, why is the knight there? What? And now c5 is not the most accurate, actually. I think queen a5 is what... But c5 is just basically saying, well, if you take me, I take, and you're going to guaranteed lose this pawn. I think that was what Anish was banking on here. Yeah, and the computer's like, you should take it en passant, and he doesn't. So the computer actually says, take it, lose this pawn, because you have to get your knight in the game. And maybe both players missed that after bishop e4, you can take with a knight. I think they might have both missed this. I don't know. Maybe they thought queen b7, but then you can take on d6, and this is protected. Like, maybe they thought this was losing for white, but you have knight d5. So even at the very bitter end, like this trade, and you're losing this pawn, knight c2 actually saves white. He's gonna win a pawn back. Now black can play queen b7, but you're still losing a pawn. So Anish allowed Fabi one final chance to reopen the position. He didn't, and this is going to be the end of the game. And Anish Giri rips open the very soul of the white position with pawn to f5, and then he ends the game like a boss. King h6. It's very rare you get a brilliant move with a king. He gives away the bishop to a winning sequence by force. The point is that black threatens bishop h5, which is actually just checkmate, which is pretty cool. And if you take, it's e4. And I disconnect the queen from the defense of the g6 pawn, and this is mate. Anish Giri is in second place in the candidates tournament with 5 rounds to go. That was not on my prediction list. That was not what I mean, it doesn't matter in this tournament if you get second. Congrats, dummy. You got, like, everybody in the history of the candidates that got second, except Ding Liren, right? Doesn't matter who it's going to be. Good job, bro. Sindarov is still going to play the world championship. So Anish Giri is 1.5 points behind Sindarov. Still doable. That is really still doable, keeping it interesting. And this game was brutal, man. This was a brutal win. This was a brutal game. Prague, Wei Yi, both guys only have 3.5. They're not going to catch Sindarov, really. But they're still looking for an interesting game. I mean, Wei Yi's still playing for draw. Like, he's just trying to make a draw with black. Prague says no draw. And then the game actually gets quite drawish anyway. So right around here, black has a chance right here. Wei Yi has a chance to equalize. He can play knight d4 and go for this bishop. He didn't like that white probably has knight e4, knight b3, and like knight g5 and is just completely winning because there's a mate. But after knight e4, black can play very shocking move, pawn to h6, and there is no knight g5. You know, maybe white has some attacking like this, so you have to be a little careful here. I think knight f5 even gets the job done because of this. You can also play knight h6. That was what he needed to play, but then instead he went for this pawn. Maybe acknowledging the situation of the tournament. Prague broke in on f7. That was deliberate from Wei Yi, and then Prague played an absolutely beautiful game. Actually reminds you in many ways of Wei Yi's game against Bluebaum, like generated a beautiful attack. By the way, you can't trade queens, you get smothered mated. Not every day you see that. And then he went queen e7. Wei Yi had like 2 minutes on the... Yeah, Wei Yi had... Okay. Wei Yi has 39 seconds to make 5 moves. And is completely lost. Rook c4, and here... Prague didn't take like this because of queen f4 check, but Prague can straight up just take a piece. He can just take a piece. Like, Prague literally can take a full bishop, and if rook c8, this is not a draw. Now, you have to calculate that, and that's not so simple. You got to realize that after all these checks, like queen e3, this, etc., like, you got to realize that you're winning. You have to realize that it's not a draw. Maybe he thought knight c8, b5, and maybe he thought like rook, like all these, but he has rook c3. And after queen f4, he can actually play rook g3 because if you take the knight, it's mate. So Pragg is winning, and he can just take a bishop for nothing. But he goes here, which is still fine. He's trying to take the bishop. But then there's b5 anyway, and Wei Yi makes it to the time control right here with 2 seconds to spare. So Wei Yi in this position goes here with 2 seconds on the clock. He's still completely lost. His bishop is still completely out of the game. But white has to play the move b4 here, which is not very obvious. You got to give away a pawn, and then when you do that, the queen leaves him an important square. You have check, g6, and then you have queen c6. I think at this point, Pragg was a little exhausted to calculate this kind of idea. He went here, and his advantage went away completely. So he kept attacking, but Wei Yi came back to defend himself. And the game ended in a draw. It just went to a rook endgame, and that was that. It is not every day that you see a full piece, completely free piece. In fact, a bishop that moved one time in the entire game and then went back to its home square. Like, this is pretty wild. I mean, the Candidates is one of these tournaments where, like, you just don't trust yourself after a certain point. That is a full piece. Now, again, if you took it with the rook, this is the problem. But the problem is only if you take it with the rook. And they draw, and I mean, time's up. Really, they got 5 rounds, 3 points. It's just not going to happen. I mean, half the players are eliminated at this point, which is mind-blowing. Again, we will check with the standings afterward. The women's section, as always, 5 people tied for first. As always, incredibly entertaining. We are not going to know who's going to win this tournament until the bitter end. Vaishali versus Divya going into today. Here are the standings on your screen. This is really the tournament to watch. I mean, the Sindarov Giri is a race to watch. And, of course, Giri has to beat him in their head-to-head match, and they're playing in the penultimate round, which might be too late. I mean, if Giri was playing Sindarov like now, at least he could, you know, dampen his spirits a little bit. Anyway, it's a 5-way tie for first. 2 of the leaders are playing each other, both from India, and Vaishali plays, she plays whatever the heck this is. Knight f3, b3. No openings, no e4, d4. And then she plays Fianchetto on the other side. She's like, all right, Divya, we're just going to do this. This is what we're playing. We're not playing any openings. We are playing whatever this is. Now, Divya did spend 10 minutes in the beginning of the game, so clearly did not expect this, but plays very well. A5, normal stuff, and plays knight e4, and plays f5. Here, black has already equalized quite comfortably, although the position is very imbalanced. This pawn is here. You've left the center, so these pawns could potentially go ahead. More on that later. And right here, black can equalize. It's a little unpleasant, but you should take the knight. The point is that if d takes, the bishop goes to this diagonal. If f takes, bishop e7, you just kind of have a mutually locked situation where white can't really progress. And actually, if anybody can progress, it's black. There are even some positions with black, like let's say white just plays a waiting move. I mean, you could play b5 or maybe even g5. Like, I mean, g5 is a little crazy. You could also try to put the bishop on e3. White's position is not very pleasant. G5 is a little over-optimistic because white actually has this move g4. But if they didn't have that, you know, that would be the idea. So you can take on e5. Divya doesn't do that. She goes here after a considerable amount of time. So she spends 26 minutes. And in general, the experience is like when you tank that long, you sometimes can overthink things. She plays very slowly, knight f6, queen e8, and then plays b5. But a couple of nice preparatory moves from Vaishali. And these simplifications only benefit white. And it's even tough to understand what happened here because Divya just gave up her c-pawn. She did not have to do that. She obviously felt things were going wrong, so she needed to transform the position, which is normal when you feel something's getting out of control. But it really feels like from knight f6 to queen e8, you know, you kind of overthink things a little bit. Yeah, and Vaishali played fantastic. I mean, she just went to the queen side, she took a pawn, and then she was like, oh, I'm up a pawn. Let me open up the position. Vaishali, Divya went for counterplay with knight c5 and knight d3. Knight c5, knight d3. Like this. And Vaishali was like, I've seen enough Gotham content. I'm gonna sack the rook. It's the only active piece that black has. Rook d3. Pawn takes. She doesn't even have to take on d3. She can just push. So Divya sacks the rook back, but I'm not gonna yell because there's nothing, it's over. I mean, white is just promoting. And then she ends the game in style. She keeps threatening trading pieces, so the pawn promotes. Rook b1 is a very nice move. She didn't even take back the bishop. And then she plays pawn takes, and the game ends in style. Another rook sacrifice. Vaishali sacrificing both rooks. You can't take because I promote and I'm defended. And it's this bishop. It's the Catalan bishop, the Fianchetto bishop, the hero of the game. That bishop went to g2 on the 6th move and never moved again. It was just the hero of the game. Useful without doing anything. Speak softly and carry a big stick. That is what that bishop did from a distance. And by the way, in case you're wondering, like, why did black resign? Well, her only move not to lose the queen is to go back and then rook b8. So it's over anyway. This was an amazing game from Vaishali. Definitely not a great game from Divya. Divya has done way better in this tournament, but Vaishali has had games in this tournament like this too. So the women's candidates, like, round to round is super unpredictable because Divya might come back tomorrow and go full inferno, and then Vaishali might lose. So they're all beating each other. So Zhu Jiner versus Katerina Lagno. I'm looking at the standings. I forget who's tied. Yeah, they're also tied for first. So these two are also tied for first, right? This one, just similar to the other board, knight f3, b3. They're like, hey, we don't want to play openings. You know, bishop b2, chill game, d4. I've had this position many times. This is like a Hikaru Blitz online special. Knight c3, rook c1. You know, you go for the bishop leaves, and we play this pawn structure. Now, white went here with a deliberate purpose, and I think the deliberate purpose was to take the knight on f6, so that black loses a guard in the middle, and forces you to take with a pawn. So this is the conversation we are now having. Black has hanging pawns. That's what they're called, hanging in the middle of the board. Doubled isolated pawns, but has the bishop pair. White lost a long-range sniper bishop, but actually has an advantage. Plays bishop d3. The knight goes to e5. You don't want to trade that knight, because then black is going to improve their structure. Wait a minute. Could you have taken? Apparently, yes. Because if black improves their structure, you have check, king h8, and the bishop gets out, and suddenly it's like, wait a minute, who is going to defend the king? And I got news for you. It's going to be very tough to defend this king. So actually, knight e5 was a very reasonable move. But okay, she plays rook e1. Black goes queen d7, and black is still trying to equalize here. She goes for a bit of counterplay, and we head to a very complicated endgame, where here, Lagno needed to play d4. She could not split her pawns any further. She already has kind of a split structure, and by doing this, she creates light squared weaknesses. This could be a target, that could be a target. White has a very pleasant game moving forward. This is this is really a game where you put on the surgery gown and you perform an operation. d5 is weak. Bring the king into the middle. This bishop is going to be passive the entire game, but Lagno basically went for this going, I can't lose this. Well, the Chinese grandmaster, the highest rated woman in the world, is really going to be the tester of that. And in that little sequence that you just saw there, black went for counterplay. And unlike the Yesipenko game, where you were down a pawn but controlled it perfectly from a distance, here there's a huge difference. In the Yesipenko game, there was a b pawn, but this pawn was there. So you have the same structure on one side plus that pawn. You don't have that here. You have a split structure and a weakness. So very different situation. And on top of that, you have one extra piece on the board, and that makes the world of difference, because the knight can do damage to light squares and the bishop can't cover them. The bishop can't cover half the squares. It's kind of useless, you know? So white plays a masterpiece endgame. All right? She just wins the pawn, stabilizes the position, infiltrates, gets the bishop, and wins. Just a very convincing victory for the #1 woman in the world. I hope I'm not messing that up. I hope like Ju and Jun didn't play in a couple of tournaments. I thought she was like 25-60 though. So very good win for her. She's bouncing back since a couple of rough losses. She's tied for first with Vaishali. Vaishali in first place, 5 rounds to go. She's won 3 of her last 4, I think, Vaishali. Now, this game was a game where Tan Zhongyi, who's in bottom position, can upset the leader, or the leader can bounce back from the game yesterday. Yeah, let's see what happens. Anna Muzychuk lost a very tough game to Divya. So in this game, we got a Grunfeld defense, which is, you know, something you can play with a forced draw for white, like in many lines. I mean, you can just trade a bunch of pieces, but there are, you know, ways for black to avoid it. You get a very lively line, but okay, trading the queens and playing this, fine, we will play an endgame. And Anna Muzychuk always manages to get her structures that she likes and that she's good in. And that's why she is one of the best and most experienced women in the field. And throughout the middle game, despite being down 30 minutes on the clock, she outmaneuvered her opponent in a great way. So she gave the bishop pair away so that you see white's bishops don't even do anything, really. They're not attacking anything. Rooks are active. Knight b7, knight d6, excellent piece coordination. Rook c5. But the only thing Anna Muzychuk does that can be considered bad is get low on time. She messed up against Divya in time trouble, and in this game, she's down a lot on time. Tan Zhongyi is really blitzing. I do sense a little bit of tilt, and she's getting outplayed. And before you know it, as we cross the 30th move, despite the opposite colored bishops, black is completely winning. She's completely winning here, but only with one plan. Opposite colored bishops tend to become draws very quickly, especially if both sides have a lot of pawns and equivalent amount of them. Black is only winning here if black activates the e-pawn. So black needs to either play king f5 or pawn takes, king f5. If you play king f5 and I take, then after this, you don't activate the e-pawn, but this is a huge weakness for white. And like with black, you can even play like something utterly absurd like this, and the white king will never get off the back rank. I mean, rook e7, rook b7, rook b1, and you will lose. So you need to play either king f5 now or takes, king f5. And if you play like this, and I play rook takes h7, then you can remove my rook, because if I go here, you have check and bishop d5, and after you remove my rook, let's say like this, you can play rook d1, king g2, e5, bishop d5, and go forward and win the endgame. Anna Muzychuk does this, and 2:40 on the clock. So she has 6 more moves to go to the time control, and in those 6 moves, a lot of her advantage is gone, just like in the Divya game. So it's deja vu, and this, despite looking like a win, I just said, opposite colored bishop endgame, a lot of pawns on the board, it's a draw. You can't win this position. White just has a fortress, and if black tries to play, like, if black tries to push the pawn, I'm just going to put my king right there. Notice, everything in the white position is on a dark square, so black can't touch anything. And Anna Muzychuk, now 2 games in a row. Look at this. Black can be up 2 pawns in an opposite colored bishop endgame, but because you blockade on the dark squares, it's just a draw. By the time the king gets here, you defend it. It's unbelievable. When you are so far apart, the king can't go for your pawns and help these pawns promote. And even if it went here and this, there's nothing. There's nothing. So devastating. I mean, not devastating, but you know what I mean. 2nd game in a row, Anna Muzychuk has a fantastic position. And she only has half a point out of these 2 games. She could have had 2. She could have also been in a Sindarov position. So the tournament is still very, very close. And we always have one stable game. I think 2 rounds in a row now, it has been Bibisara. Bibisara's games have kind of cooled off a little bit. It was a Sicilian. It was a Rossalimo. And it was an interesting game, but not a game that really any side had a major advantage or an opportunity. But of course, I'm oversimplifying in these games. Even this endgame can probably go on for a little bit longer. But Goryachkina is winless. She has drawn all her games and lost 1. So it's been very, very close. And so after 9 rounds, the women, 2 leaders, 5.5. Then it's Muzychuk. Then it's 2 with 4.5. Then it's 4-4-3. So in the next round, Lagno plays Tan Zhongyi. Imagine Tan Zhongyi beats Lagno, right? And then Zhu Jiner loses to Bibisara. So they get to 5 and to 4. And then it's just a mix of players beating each other up. It's Muzychuk versus Vaishali. If Muzychuk with white beats Vaishali, she overtakes first place. Yeah, this one's going to be epic. I think with like 1 round to go, there will be 4 people who can win the tournament, which is exactly what happened in the candidates last year, but in the men's group. And this is our field for the gentlemen. 5 rounds to go, and effectively 6 players are eliminated. I mean, I don't think you can overcome a 2.5 point deficit. Fabiano would need to win every game from this point forward, which he is totally capable of doing, but I am sure he is tilted beyond belief. Because it's not just about the candidates. This is his 6th candidates, and in the absence of Magnus Carlsen being there on the throne, it was a golden ticket for a player like Fabiano to contend for a world championship. The candidates is a brutal thing in chess. It comes around once every 2 years for whatever reason. I think it's a completely idiotic, outdated system. I mean, like, I have talked about this in many an interview, but like, chess is so hot right now. Why do we crown the ultimate title once every 2 years? It's just, I mean, all these players should be competing against each other all the time. But yeah, I mean, I can only imagine how Fabiano Caruana is feeling right now. I don't know if he's going to be up to the task to win like 4 games in a row. And that's not easy against this field. People don't want to lose 4 games in a row. In the next round, Giri plays Hikaru. Hikaru will try to spoil the tournament of another person. And it's Wei Yi, Fabi. Fabi's going to try to play for a win with black. Sindarov with white against Prague. Sindarov is in the drawing boat right now. So we will see what happens. That's all I have for you today. Get out of here.